Hi guys, it's Aaliyah. Welcome to episode 4 of the Social Distance Podcast. We're so excited to be sharing with you. Today we had a really insightful discussion about quirky culture, comparison, social media, the pressure to be individualistic, and how radically different teen culture looks than it did even 10 years ago. We ask the question, how can we live as individuals who are fully themselves and completely confident in it? If you are interested in learning about what's behind the quirky culture phenomenon or struggle with comparison yourself, give this a listen and we think you'll really enjoy it. Also, don't forget to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Anchor. This episode is also available as a studio podcast on YouTube. Search Social Distance Podcast or use the links in the show notes on any of those platforms to start listening. Thanks, and we hope you love the show.
Welcome to Social Distance. This is our 4th episode, right? I think we've done 4 now.
Yep, it's been 4.
Which is more than I've ever gotten in any project like this before, so we're already winning.
Wow.
Today we have another topic that we've wanted to talk about for a little bit, or a couple of us have wanted to talk about it for a little bit, and we are going to do something less serious next time. So first, though, before we get into the topic, we should probably mention some of the announcements, housekeeping things, if you're a teacher.
If you will.
Yeah, housekeeping, if you will. The first one is we have an email account that we're going to have open for questions or topics that you want us to talk about or would be interested in. We can't make any promises, obviously, but if you have questions, we'll do a Q&A episode in one of the next couple of episodes. So, Luke, you probably have to tell what the email is. I don't even remember it.
Okay, so the email is pod.socialdistance@gmail.com. So it's pod.socialdistance@gmail.com. It'll be in the show description, along with the link to our now approved podcast on Apple Podcasts. So you should just you should just be able to search Social Distance Podcast on Apple Podcasts and have it show up. Or use the link in the Spotify, YouTube, Anchor description, whatever.
Mm-hmm. And you can remain anonymous with those questions or shout yourself out if you want to. Either way.
All right. We also have opportunities for you guys to connect with us on social media. We have an Instagram and a Twitter. Our Instagram is _socialdistance_ the normal American spelling. And our Twitter is s_social_distance. So the underscore just replaces the O in social distance, if that makes sense. Yeah. We'll also probably put up a little Q&A box on our story when we're about to film that episode on our Instagram story, but we know that not everybody has an Instagram account, so that's why we're making it
any longer questions, the email would probably be easier.
Yes, exactly. Leave the fluffy stuff to the gram.
Oh yes.
Ask the real bangers on
Right.
on the Gmail. The real hard hitters.
Yes. Evan's here too, by the way. He's just very quiet.
Yeah, I am here.
Yeah, there he is. He doesn't have any housekeeping responsibilities. He's lazy.
No.
Except for making music.
I'm gonna write the music.
Yeah, you need to write that music.
Yeah.
Can we talk really quick about how cool it is that we all have been able to contribute to this project in different ways?
That has been good, yeah.
I really love that about us, you guys.
Yeah.
We all have different interests.
Strengths, abilities.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like
fun.
the 4 of us are one person, yet 4 different people, you know? I don't know.
We're one really good person.
I don't know if I'm ready to take it that far.
Okay.
Seriously, if you combined all of our positive attributes
took out all the negative
ones, we'd be pretty
An
darn close to perfection.
Overall positive person.
I think we would be almost the perfect being. Just saying.
We would still be socially awkward.
We're going to take out that that prideful aspect as well.
Right, we don't want pride.
Yeah,
We're going to
true.
take that
Ideal
out.
person.
Mm-mm.
That's
Text to
100%
the
only
non.
positive aspects.
Yeah,
Okay.
but seriously,
But-
it's been so cool because, like, I've done some of the graphic design stuff. Evan is mixing music for our intro and outro. Luke is our tech giant, so he does our audio editing and publishing.
Mhm.
Claire's managing social media, sending out business emails.
Right, that's my main job, is to send out the business emails.
Yep.
We really have it
They
all.
are
You
my
coordinate
favorite
us.
part of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't come up with a financial advisor yet, or a financial manager.
With the
But-
72 cents we've made.
Yeah, that's going to have to come soon, though, because if that grows exponentially,
It could. You never know. We're going
know?
to pop off, I'm telling you.
72 cents. What can that even buy us?
I would like to say
Pretty
two
much nothing.
things.
1 second of ad.
What
I would
you
like to say two things. I would like to say thank you to the listeners for 72 cents, and I would also like to say, hang on, I forgot. No, I actually forgot.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
no. It's almost like every
I
listener
was
gave
gonna
us
say
1 cent.
Yeah.
Pretty good average. Thank you, everyone, for your cent.
Thank you for your penny.
Mhm.
I was gonna say that we're bored, you guys, and we are really channeling. So if it sounds like we're dreaming big, it's because we are, and that's
Yes.
okay.
Yes. Anyways,
Right.
we should get into the topic, and I was going to do some sort of cute transition about, like, the perfect person made out of all of us would be a really quirky person, but we kind of missed the opportunity, so I'll say it now. Kind of messed up, though. Today we're going to talk about quirky culture, which I think is kind of, people are starting to realize it's a thing. I've definitely noticed it a lot in just my own meanderings on the internet. You guys probably have as well. We've talked about it some, but here's where we're really going to break it down and break down how it can be a problem. Anyone have any thoughts before I try to, like, define it? Because I feel like it needs a definition and it doesn't have one.
Sis, take it away.
Yeah. I feel like you've thought more about this than everybody else, honestly. So
Yeah, I have, because it's quite linked to personal struggles I've had with.
Right.
I hate being like everyone else, and it is my driving factor in life in a lot of ways.
Does.
And I think it's a flaw in a lot of ways, because I don't just think for myself and like what I like. It's a lot of times influenced by people being really outspoken about things that they like, and I see that and I'm like, wow, they're doing too much and I don't want to do that much. So
Right.
that's what I think about this.
I would also like to say that it has made you a really cool person. There are a lot of good parts about it, but
Thanks. I think there are good parts
agree
about
with
it.
what you're saying, that it can be a hard thing too.
Yeah. So I guess this is how I would define it. I would say that, like, the quirky person, the person who is trying too hard to be quirky, which is a lot of people nowadays, on the internet especially, they're the person who finds their identity in the things they like. As a baseline, they find their personality in their, like, outward expression of what they like and who they are, but even more so, they find their identity in liking things that other people do not like. It's the kind of the phenomenon of, like, I'm not like other girls.
Mm-hmm.
Like that whole situation, which is kind of annoying. People who are trying too hard in this aspect it's pretty obvious, and it's kind of like, as a person who's like that, you kind of always feel like you're faking it, I think, in a lot of ways. But in general, like, on the internet, it just brings a lot of like, condemnation from a lot of people. You can either be too basic or you can be too quirky, and there's kind of like a scale obviously in between, but it's almost impossible to hit the right balance where you're actually a cool person because you take individuality in what you like and don't listen to what other people think, but also are able to, you know, be a part of what everyone else is interested in and talking about. So that's kind of definition. I am actually curious to like hear from you guys, because I feel like it's really specific to girls a lot of the time, but it's definitely a bigger theme. So I kind of want to hear how it is like for boys.
Well, I guess I could start. So you're basically asking our general thoughts on it, right?
Well, just like you could give some examples, but just kind of how, if it's a pressure to be different than everyone else or be like everyone else.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
maybe if your personality influences that as well.
Okay. I think for guys, it's not necessarily, I guess I will say it is wanting to fit in, but at the same time, I would also say it's a lot of trying to show each other up. So we might go off and do our own thing with the thought, oh, this is definitely better than what I'm doing than this other person. And I don't know. I can't speak for an opposite gender because I'm not a girl or a woman, obviously.
Really?
But I know you never would have guessed. But I feel like it's not necessarily as much of a pride aspect as much as it is kind of a desire for acceptance. Am I wrong in that?
Yeah, I think both are pride and both are like acceptance, but I definitely think for girls it's more subtle and more based on like the nuance of what people will think of you if you're being too much or not enough, or like those dynamics more. And yeah, definitely like fitting in, having people like you. Leah, you should talk more about it too from the perspective of a girl, because I'm not like other girls.
I would like to pose maybe a more specific question to the boys.
Yeah, that's good.
Just because I do think that based on gender, it can change form so much. I think this would even just help to show how it can look so different based on your gender. But like you boys, when you are putting together an outfit, do you consider whether or not somebody will think it's, well, actually, I already know the Evan answer.
Yeah.
No. See,
but okay,
I feel like this topic doesn't like apply to me a whole lot, so I'm not really.
That's why that's why we need you here, because we need you to be the person to tell us that.
Because Evan is, I feel like, really mature in this area.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. But so then, Luke, when you're getting dressed, do you worry about, oh, is this too basic? Is this too out there?
Depends. Usually, if it's crazy, I might not, but otherwise, no. Usually, I'm pretty chill with that type of thought. It's kind of, does this look good in the context of, does it look good? Not, will other people think I look like a runner? Will they think I look like an F-boy? Will they think I look like, I don't know, a Visco dude? I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't categorize it like that.
I deeply relate to what Claire was talking about. I feel like she did such a good job of explaining it. I don't have a whole lot to add. I would just say, like, an example of it for me is, okay, so this is actually a very recent example. I am considering going to a couple of local universities, one of them being Bethel University, and there's definitely like a Bethel girl look. I'll just preface this by saying that. And since quarantine, I've been wanting to get clear frame, like blue light glasses that like block the UV rays. Just they like help reduce headaches, but also I've always wanted an excuse to wear clear rim glasses. And I've liked them for a long time, like a couple of years. And I was about to order them, and I FaceTimed my friend who sadly just had to come home, but she's about to finish her freshman year at Bethel. And she was wearing them, and I said, "Oh, those look so cute. I'm about to order some." And she said, "Yeah, every girl at Bethel has them." And the feeling that I got in my stomach, you guys, this like immediate resistance to wearing something that everybody else wore, because suddenly, even though I knew that I liked them just because I liked them, I was so worried about other people perceiving what I was wearing as an attempt to be like them. Yes. And I think it's so twisted that is actually something that bothers me, and something that I had to wrestle with. But I will tell you, I ordered them this afternoon because I was like,
oh wow,
I know,
okay.
I like them, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think that's just kind of a personal story to attest to the fact that yes, I do really struggle with it. Another thing that I would offer up for discussion is that I think that this struggle has always existed. Like wanting to be somebody who is individualistic, who likes things other people don't like, who is well-rounded, well-cultured, interesting, wanting to appeal to other people. Some people struggle with it more than others. But I was talking to my mom about this about a week ago, and she said that she remembers her friends in high school that made her feel less than for not listening to more like niche out there bands or watching other shows. And I thought it was so fascinating that stretching all the way back to the 80s, this has been a problem. But might I propose that there has been a cultural shift in the sense that even in the past 10 years, the standard has gone from being more of a refined, polished, perfectly beautiful kind of standard. Wait, what did I say at the beginning? Did I say standard?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's the same.
Well, the ideal has been that like polished, perfect beauty that I would associate with like, bear with me, Pinterest, and has now transitioned into kind of, you want to do the things that are more shocking, that are more edgy, that might not even be necessarily considered cute, but they're like more out there.
Right.
So I would say in general, like things have shifted to become focused on relatability and like becoming a person who, or like seeming like a person who is just like everyone else in some ways, but is individual in other ways. So like, I would say the internet probably is the main factor for this. Just the fact that memes exist, to be a person who understands memes and like, I don't know, uses those to be relatable and quirky, it adds a whole new layer of it where your personality like projects like that. And you're not like other girls who, you're not like the basic girls who don't understand what these memes mean.
Right.
So I think it comes from wanting to be relatable, which is, it's kind of a contradiction almost because you're trying to be relatable but also individualistic.
Right. Yeah. I think the boys could maybe talk more to this. Do you guys, what are the good and bad parts of this new generation sort of having like a whole new language where they talk in memes or Vine references or TikToks or whatever, when it can be both, the inclusivity can feel really wonderful, but then what are some of the negative aspects that you guys have experienced, or have you experienced that at all?
Well, so recently I deleted Instagram because it was just taking up too much of my time.
I did not know that.
Oh, I thought I had told you guys. Anyways, but being on Instagram, you get a lot more access to memes. They're more stale because it's not Reddit.
Right.
But since deleting that,
army memes, but they're memes at least.
See, even that right there, the fact that you just said stale, and all of us knew what you meant.
Yep.
Right.
True.
Like anybody over the age of 30 would have no idea what you meant by that.
My parents.
That's
somehow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, well,
they're different. They're not like other parents.
My parents
Evan's
are not like other parents.
Are the real G's. Okay, sorry. Keep going.
Anyways. Yeah, so I haven't really even noticed a desire to be more, I guess you could say, fluent in understanding meme culture. I don't know if it's just like my personality changing to the point where I don't really find that as important anymore, or if it's something else entirely. But for me personally, I haven't noticed any negative effects of not knowing the latest and greatest of the memes.
Right. Well, just in general, like knowing what's going on the internet and
knowing what's going on the internet. Yeah.
Like obviously that does take up a lot of your time, like you said.
I think it's
like a focus that can be like, it takes up so much of your focus and your energy.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's more of if you are not using the internet as much, it's not going to matter to you as much, whether you know it or not. So it's not necessarily an inclusivity and exclusivity. It's more of if you want to be in the know, you can. You just have to spend more time.
Right.
And if you are spending a lot of time, you will automatically know a lot of those things. So it
can just be difficult to not care.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah.
That's true. See, I think for me, like, it's not necessarily speaking to only meme culture, but like social media in general. It's sometimes it can devolve into me wanting to be like other people and trying to fit in, kind of like we were talking about earlier, even though I feel like it's not necessarily, kind of contradicts what I said earlier. It's not necessarily as a big thing for me in my personal experience, but it has been there, maybe in smaller quantities.
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes it's more just because I enjoy being on it. It's a free will use of my time, which I suppose it always is, but it's not because I feel pressured to be on it. Generally speaking, again, this is for me personally, peer pressure isn't really something I feel that much. And like, I don't really care if you think I have to do this. If I think it's cool and I think I want to do it, I'll do it. I don't really care what you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you always say about people's opinions, Luke?
Yeah, we don't need to bring that in quite yet.
Okay.
But but kind of speaking to what we were talking about, like specifically with internet jokes and meme culture type of ideas, that stuff can be really fun to share with just a group of in real life friends.
Yes.
Who all get it. If you all get it and everybody gets it, it is so funny and so much fun. It's like an inside joke, but it's not an inside joke.
Right.
You all know it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay, I would argue.
It's just
I would
like the
argue
largest inside joke.
Yeah. In that sense, it's super, super attractive. But at the same time, if you take, like anything, if you take it too far, if you spending your entire day looking at internet, looking at social media, whatever.
Okay, here's what I would say about what you said about peer pressure, because I would almost argue that it's not peer pressure. It's like it comes from pressure from yourself because of an assumption that you need to, like, you're responsible for who you're going to be and what kind of person you're going to be.
That's accurate.
And so I think that, like, being a person who knows what's going on the internet is like, I've seen in my own life, like, you just automatically become cooler because you know what's going on, and so like that effort you're putting into it will make you cooler. And I think that feels like more of reason versus doing it because other people want you to do it or because you feel excluded. I think that the whole thing kind of comes from like a subtle pressure within yourself to make something of yourself, which is already like a flawed idea.
Right.
That you have to create who you're going to be and create your value. But yeah, maybe I'm wrong though. Maybe that's only me.
I went out.
That's not only you.
I went out.
Sorry, you go, Leah.
No, it's okay. I need to think anyway.
I think it's more of a personalized issue for everyone. There's probably a lot of overlap, but I think it's such a wide range of what people feel and different reasons for doing it that it's not necessarily just narrowed down to one thing.
Right.
Yeah. Again, it's like you said, it's a lot of individual stuff. What I say won't necessarily be true for you, but I agree. What you said is definitely relevant to a lot of people, and I think is even relevant to me to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
I went.
So maybe I'm noticing that this is mostly a girl thing. Sorry, Aaliyah.
No, it's just it was so funny because I said I went out like 7 times.
I went out.
Keep
Hey, we get it. You went out.
The governor's gonna come get you. Sorry, Claire, finish what you're saying.
No, I was just gonna say that this conversation is already making me realize that maybe it's a girl thing more than a guy thing.
Oh yeah.
I think there's even a Reddit that's just / not like other girls.
Yeah.
Where it's just girls thinking that they're better than other girls because they, like to eat a burger instead of a salad, or they have a horse instead of a car. Like, it's just
have a horse instead of a car.
No, I'm not even joking. That's not an exaggeration. Please look at it.
Oh no.
Let's not get into horse girls.
Yeah,
Just equestrian things.
Yeah.
Can I please have a waffle?
Yes.
Okay, so
Wow.
I didn't go out for waffles. I went out for tacos with my dad, and we were talking about this like phenomenon that as teenagers we can be more or less attracted to a person based on how fluent they are in like meme speak. Like
very true.
like the
That
fact
is
that
true,
that
yeah.
has like that's what I'm talking about more. It's just like and I after you guys, kind of talked it out more, I would agree that it's not even necessarily a pressure like, oh, I gotta go study my memes tonight. Like that's I realize like
I think if you get to the point where you're trying to study memes, then you have something wrong.
You've missed the
You
point.
You've missed the point entirely.
You don't
Yeah,
reference
no,
them right.
like I realized that I've never felt like that. Like I've never felt the pressure because I feel like this generation, the way that our brains have kind of adapted to this constant high speed intake of information is we don't really even have to try anymore. Like if you're just on the app, you're going to pick up those sayings in certain ways of.
It's almost like just moving straight up to another country and just being forced right into it, and you're basically forced to learn it.
Precisely.
Whether you want to or not, but typically everyone wants to.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to point out.
Honestly?
I know.
I just wanted to point out how strange that is, and maybe not say that it's like an inclusivity and exclusivity thing, but rather that you are just bound to be drawn toward the people that have developed a similar sense of humor to you because of using those same, in the same way that you might be drawn toward. Actually, that might not be true with girls because then they feel like they're competing, but and also just the fact that our dialect as Zoomers
literally
evolves
Zoomers right now.
Literally Zoomers. Oh yeah.
This podcast
Zoomers on Zoom
new
evolves at such a rapid pace that it's astonishing. Because I will say things out loud to my parents just without really thinking about it, and they're like, what does that mean? Because they've never heard it before. They've never heard it before this week. And I'm like, oh, well, it means this. And they're like, well, you said this like it's just my mom was saying that when she was in high school it was not like that.
Yeah.
No.
See, for me, like I just honestly don't even really mention that type of stuff to my parents because I'm like, they won't get it and they don't get it. Whenever I have, whenever I've tried to explain something like that to them, they look at me with a blank stare and said, "Luke, are you okay?"
That's like the exact opposite. My parents will just start saying those sorts of things to me, and I'm like, "How are you guys this good?" Like,
yeah, no. See, if my parents would never do that, and when they have, so they obviously have done it. They wouldn't never do it, but they have done it like very few times in the past, and I've been so confused. I'm like, what? Why are you saying that?
Yeah, wow. What we're learning is that Evan's parents are quirky parents. They're not like everyone else.
Mine are like, they're not quite there, but they're really close. They're close.
Yeah.
Like, they try to understand. And my dad can appreciate a good meme.
Yep.
My mom, she is better at kind of adopting dialect, if that makes sense. Like she understands, she understands what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, I'm not even going to go into that because my parents don't understand.
Yeah, mine don't either. But okay, but kind of on the same vein though, of like wanting to understand the meme culture, like why do we understand it? Like, do you guys think there's like a more, I don't know, like a higher level, a deeper meaning behind why we want to do that? Like other than just like wanting to fit in, or not really?
I did read a whole article once about like the style of humor that is Zoomer's style of humor and like how it reflects a nihilistic view of life that's inherited from basically a lot of bad things in society happening. So
Wow.
yeah, there's that. But I don't think that's what you were meaning. But I think that it is sort of like a camaraderie thing.
Yeah.
We're all in this together, you know?
Yeah, right.
Have you guys seen that thing where it's like the guy says, I forgot that I can't say the things on Twitter that I say in real life. Like how
Oh my
it's like,
gosh,
oh well,
yeah.
I want to kill myself. And then
Yeah.
stand on Twitter, everybody's like, haha. And then you say it in real life, and everybody's like, are you okay? Do you need psychological help? It's like, no, I'm good. I mean, like I do, but like I'm gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do we want to tie this back to quirky culture, or we could just go on?
I do, but I mean,
okay.
Yeah, we should.
this is a 4-person ship.
Exactly. I will propose niche memes as an example of this phenomenon, of the quirky phenomenon. If people have not ever seen a niche meme before, it's almost impossible to explain what they are. But basically, like, it's like
You wouldn't get it.
mood board. You wouldn't understand. It's basically like a mood board, but like for a personality. And it's like people will craft these like personalities of people that are like really unique and different, and then people will, I guess, look at them to like take inspiration. I don't even know how that would be useful to a person, but it definitely fits in the vein of like, it's sort of self-deprecating but also inspirational to people, and they take like, it's kind of idealistic, if that makes sense, like a romantic view of personalities.
Yeah.
Wait, so you're saying people do a mood board with memes to describe a personality?
They're called niche memes, but they're not really memes. They're more like, I don't even know how to describe it. Have you ever
They're
seen
just
I think I know what you're
describing
talking
like
about, but
a
I'm not 100%
niche
sure.
personality type.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I've just never heard it described like that, but I know what you're talking about.
It's like the pictures where there's like a pair of Vans and an
like
iced
Teen Boy
coffee.
starter pack.
Yep.
Yeah, they're starter packs, but like more advanced and more like weird and different.
Yep. I definitely know that.
Makes sense.
Because they're quirky.
Yeah, I feel like that's the best example of the quirky culture. And if people haven't seen those before, just Google niche memes and you'll come up with them.
Memes or starter pack memes.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the whole idea.
Yeah. So I was going to also mention that like with this phenomenon, there comes this like constant back and forth cycle, which we talked about a little bit earlier today, that if you are someone who's trying too hard to be quirky, people will make fun of you for that. And then if you're someone who's super basic and like not self-aware, you'll get made fun of for that. And it's like this constant cycle of it. Like sometimes it's really funny to make fun of people who aren't self-aware, or make fun of yourself if you're not self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
But it like at some point it leads to people feeling like they don't actually know who they are, because they feel like they're trying too hard on one thing or trying too hard on another thing. Do you guys feel that? Do you guys know how to fix that? Like, how would a person
Please help me.
Yeah, very much like, you guys know what to do about that. I'm struggling.
No, yeah, I definitely relate. Once again, the boys are just like, ugh, and I'm like, yes. Yeah, I think it just kind of fluctuates, but I think that, and Claire and I have talked about this before, the only real remedy is to first look at what you know your identity to be, and then ask yourself, what do I actually like? What do I really like? What actually is life-giving to me? What actually makes me happy? Like, not that I said happy last, because that should not be your main motivator, but I think that once we find security in Christ, and then we're able to move forward to say, okay, what specific desires and what am I trying to say? Not likes.
Just like
you
can focus on who you actually are and your personality more not from like what you're projecting to other people.
Yes.
But like it takes kind of the outside view out of the picture.
Well, maybe that's where you should start. How do I deconstruct this complex I have about how people are going to perceive me? Like how I wanted to get the glasses until I thought, oh, but what if somebody else thinks I'm trying too hard? What if somebody else thinks that I'm basic? Who gives a darn?
Exactly.
You know, it's just perpetuating the cycle. If I'm scared of them, then they're only judging me because they're scared of somebody else judging them, and I'm going to be looking at that. Like, it's just
right. And the reality is that no one actually cares. Like, they might be judging you, but really, if they're a person in your life who is judging you based off of, like, you're trying too hard to be indie or not indie, or you're trying too hard to be edgy, they're not going to be your real friend anyways.
Right.
Which is kind of obvious. Like, we all know that. But
yeah. And I feel like the people that we know in our lives who are not trying this, like, are not trying to exert that or assert that dominance, or like, I'm different and special, they're just such a breath of fresh air, because you can feel that, like, just quiet confidence, like, radiating off of them, because you know that they're just vibing. May I propose an idea that just came to my mind?
Yes.
So we as a class recently read Mere Christianity, and there was a really a chapter that really stuck with me. It was on pride, and he talks about how pride is the worst way that you can possibly sin. So he says that some sins are worse than others, and that pride is the worst of them. You can think what you want about that, but that's what
because it's at the root
Clive
of
says.
almost all other sins.
That is the important,
So that's why it's worse than
factor.
Yeah.
Exactly. So because pride will lead to murder, adultery, whatever else. I just went right for the top there. Okay. Just like gonna jump straight there. But I would say that maybe even like the cultural shift that I'm talking about is, it used to be, I never even finished my thought. My gosh. Okay, he says that pride is not being proud of who you are, or not taking pride in your work, or wanting to do an excellent job, or recognizing that you are beautifully created. That's not what it is at all. It's when you start to compare. Okay, who's number one, who's number two, who's number three, who's better, who's best. It has nothing to do with being good. It has to be with being the pride has to do with, I'm better than this other person.
Yeah. Did he use the example of when you walk into a room and, like, immediately assess, like, where you rank?
Yes, he did.
I think he might have, yeah. And so I would argue that the cultural shift that has happened is, it used to be that it was just a kind of, for the most part, it was just one style. It was one set of tastes that were the popular ones, and everybody was ranking themselves, 1, 2, 3 in that. In, like, let's say, like in a public high school. Now, teens are realizing that if they remove themselves from that, like, basic popular construct or set of fashion choices, music tastes, favorite movies, whatever, they can be the best in a specific area.
Right. And the internet gives them people who are also, like, in solidarity with them in those things.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But the thing is that now at this point, it's just created, everybody's moved over there. It's the second tower is taller than the first one.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so I just thought of something though. I feel like whenever I've seen, like, older shows, like 50s, 40s type of deal, or movies or whatever, it seems like if they're ever cutting to a high school or a social setting, it does seem like everybody's doing the same thing. They all feel basic. So
or the people who aren't popular have really just accepted their place, and they live a life where they're constantly sad about it.
They're not trying
even
to
Napoleon
make that.
Dynamite almost.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
But
is
that kind of did beautify it a little bit.
Yeah. But
They're not trying to make their irrelevancy into its own little niche culture. They're just accepting that it's not what other people want.
Right. So I don't know, that is interesting. Just kind of like, because I have watched that type of stuff before and be like, wow, all these people really just do seem basic. They all do seem like they're all just doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
That is interesting because I never really realized it, but now it's kind of based from hearing that, it's like a conscious shift almost.
Yeah.
I shouldn't record after 9:00 at night after a full school day because I just shouted that the second tower is taller than the other and gave really no explanation.
No, that makes sense.
But and maybe there are lots of little towers. Maybe you want to look at it that way.
Right. Maybe everyone just makes their own tower.
No matter what tower you think you're building, you're either building on top of somebody else's block or somebody's going to build on top of you.
Right. Because that's what we're thinking about bringing up earlier, that really there's nothing new under the sun. And that's why people see things that they don't like or they don't appreciate in other people in terms of like trying too hard or not trying hard enough, is because they've seen it before and they're like, oh, you're just like this person who watches these films and listens to this music. Like it's all.
Yeah, and it's just this crazy thing where it's like, well, if I've already seen it, then your opinion, the things that you like, your taste, they no longer have value then.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't bring something new to the table. And then, and I think we haven't even touched the fact that society says be different. And then people are different. They say, oh, that's too different. We don't like that.
Yeah.
Why would we even do that though? Because like we've propagated the culture of let's be different, let's change ourselves, yet
let's craft the person
we condemn each other for being different or changing ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's so hypocritical. I don't even understand. Yeah. Do you guys have any thoughts on why that is? Because seriously, that's something I've thought about, and I don't even know. I can't really wrap my head around it, honestly.
Because you want to hear my thought?
Yeah, go.
Because we have equated individualism with value.
Yes.
And because we have also equated what a person can contribute to society with value.
Mm.
Yes. It's merit and it's like your sense of culturedness, or like how cultured you are equals morality, equals good in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
But then again, though, I still have the question of if we are truly preaching individuality and be yourself type of deal, then why do we actually care if someone is truly embracing the full ideal of that and not caring about being cultured or whatever? Because I know in my own head I've done that before, but I don't know why, because it doesn't make sense.
It is very weird.
I would say it has to do with people when they think of themselves and they think I should be able to embrace who I am uniquely, and people should be accepting for my flaws and appreciate my uniqueness. But then when they see that in other people, it's like a double standard, I think, because because when they look at themselves, they see the redeemable parts because they value themselves highly. And in other people, they don't see the redeemable parts as easily.
Can I pull a big brain here, please?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're allowed one per episode.
I'm allowed one big brain per episode. Okay. So that would mean that Christ is the only one who can actually value us all, which is an obvious statement.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he is the one who cannot have a double standard.
Right, because he can see all of us. He can see that we're all faking it and failing.
Right.
And he redeems us in that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Ultimate
good thought.
Stuff.
Evan, do you want to chime in and just like drop some wisdom? I want to know how you got to the place where you can just be like, yeah, I play piano and wear the same sweatshirt every day. Like
he does, audience, he does.
Sorry, you rotate, but
I have 3 sweatshirts that I wear.
Yeah,
that's true.
Because you got that aquarium one.
I got the shed aquarium one at Savers. Yep.
It's pretty good, actually.
That's a good
day. I actually really like
we have to talk about Savers another episode.
Another time.
I think you guys, we can make an entire episode just off of that.
Yeah,
we really could. We should also.
Plays.
We can post our review on Instagram or something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And invite Anna and Mandy to join us, maybe.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, take it away.
Yeah. So I honestly don't really know. It's just not been an issue for me. Like I don't even really relate to any of the things you guys are saying, which is why I'm not talking.
It's a good thing.
But it is a good thing, and I recognize that. There's not a whole lot to say, at least I don't think for me, because I've never really thought about this issue that much. But hearing you guys talk about it makes me realize that it is an actual issue.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, do you want advice, or what are you really looking for here?
I think we should end with like how we can treat others better about this and think about this in a greater perspective. So I don't really know what that is, but we can talk about it.
What theological foundations do we need as human beings to be able to live fully as ourselves in our true identity in Christ and to treat others as individual people?
I would say, first off, you're not going to please everybody. And it doesn't matter if you please anybody. It doesn't matter if you please like anyone. If you try to please God, that's okay. Let me rephrase that. You should try to please other people, but not like in a people pleaser sort of way, but just out of selflessness and like godly love.
Right.
So if you don't really care what people think of you, it's a lot easier, but it's also not easy to get to the point where you don't care about what people think about you.
Right.
Right.
And I don't know if it's just my personality lends itself better to not caring, or I don't know what the reason is, but yeah. I just say don't, like, I don't want to just say don't care about it, because
How do we get there?
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that's kind of helpful though.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a small bit of advice, because I got there a little bit over the winter. Not quite as much as Evan, but I was there. And I think it takes kind of a stripping away of all the things that you actually do care about, and it either being forced to replace them or not having them replaced with other things.
So quarantine.
No, not well. Yeah, actually, it could be, but that's not what it was for me. It was completely other circumstances. But it's
sensory deprivation.
It's a deprivation of the things that you cared about to realize, wait, I cared about that way too much, and then you start self-examining, and you're like, oh wait, maybe I shouldn't have cared about this. Maybe I shouldn't care about this. And you're like, and then you slowly come to the conclusion, again, for me, this is how it worked for me and how I think it could work for other people, is that, oh wait, I didn't have to care about these things so much. Why did I care about these things so much?
Right.
And then you go back and you're like, okay, I can still enjoy, say, soccer. I can still enjoy playing video games, but I can't let myself care about it that much. And
or put my value in them.
Yeah, and it's once you have that conscious kind of idea that you're like, oh, you know what? If other people are really good at, say, baseball, or if they're really popular on social media, good for them. I don't care. That's not something I aspire to. I don't need to do that.
So that kind of turns it into a bigger issue, which I think is what we've kind of been unknowingly getting to this whole time.
Right.
Of idolatry and like putting other things before God, because what you guys,
he said it.
like, from what I can tell, just listening to you guys, it sounds like people generally care about what other people think more than what how they care about what God thinks.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess for me, that would be other things, perhaps more like in the music realm, or in, I don't know, other areas that everyone will have different areas where they'll have their own idols. But I guess for me, it's never been caring about like
right.
being.
So in other words, you're saying that if your interests were more generalized, because I will say you do kind of specialized interests, not really, but a little bit, it might have been more of an issue. Is that fair
Right.
to say?
And here's just a random thought that I had. But perhaps if I had cared more about that back then, my interests would be more generalized now.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
my interests wouldn't have stayed the same throughout my childhood, because I've always really enjoyed music and I've always worn a sweatshirt and pants. And and I don't and I guess I never really had that.
Sometimes you wear shorts though, every once in a while.
Okay, I wear shorts in the summer.
Yeah. And a tee.
Yep.
This is a whole different topic. We can't get into this.
I'm so sorry. I just think it's so funny. Okay. Wrap it up, Ev.
You derailed my train of thought.
I'm trying to keep it together over here.
I actually have something else if we want to close on this, I guess.
Okay, take it away.
Yeah.
Sorry, Evan.
We'll pick that one up later. I was going to say that, remember in Mere Christianity where he talks about becoming a Christian and submitting your life to God's will does not mean that you lose your personality, but it means that you become more of who you truly are. You find your self in Christ, because it really is true that if you always think about how, like, if you're always so hyper focused on your own personality and looking inwards at yourself, it's just going to spiral because you will be failing all the time.
Right.
If you hand that to God and give your focus and energy to things that are in line with his will and kind of taking yourself out of the equation, thinking of yourself less, then you really become who you're meant to be, because it's who God wants you to be. Yeah. And that's kind of like a high level, like, you're never going to know when you get there besides heaven. Yeah. But it's really good to keep in mind. That was like one of the most helpful chapters to me personally. Obviously this topic hits a soft spot with me, so that was really helpful from C.S. Lewis.
And I will say, if not, this is more broader C.S. Lewis stuff. If we're just, actually, I'll say more for the audience. If you're interested in kind of, this is a little bit more theological. So if you're not necessarily coming from a Christian perspective, like, you might not want to read it. I would still encourage you to read it. But it's his book, The Screwtape Letters. It's really interesting, and it kind of delves into a very, like, wide area of the human condition, and like kind of examines the baser, not necessarily baser, but things that we do to cope with our lives, and like things we do that we kind of all know aren't right, but we still
and he comes at it from a very interesting perspective.
And we still do, but we still do them anyways. And it touches on the pride, the temptation, wanting to fit in idea. And it's really interesting. Even if you don't have like a single bit of faith in God, I would still say read it.
He calls you out on every page.
Yeah, it's cool.
Right.
At the
it's
very
a little uncomfy,
storytelling.
But...
Yeah.
So anyways, I think that's all I had to say. You guys have any closing thoughts?
Just know that you are valued for who you are as an individual person, no matter what you choose to wear or watch or listen to or be.
Yes. And I think it would be great if people reached out on the email and kind of said how you can do it anonymously, but like say where you fall on the spectrum, because I think it's also just an interesting like experiment. I did not expect for Leah to be able to relate so much and you guys not as much. Obviously that's a good conversation. That's a better conversation than if we would have just agreed with each other the whole time. But like, I would be really curious to see if this is like a generational thing or like just our friends or like a culture-wide thing. I don't know. It's kind of,
I will say I looked at the age analytics for our podcast, and we have several above 30-year-olds listening to this. Like I would say, like I think I had 15.
It's my mom's friends.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, Aaliyah's mom's friends. Please email pod.socialdistance@gmail.com.
Yeah,
Tell us
let
your
us know.
thoughts. You will remain anonymous unless you specifically ask for otherwise.
We'll,
Yes.
we'll even teach you some Zoomer terms if you ask nicely.
We can have a whole section on Zoomer terms.
Yes.
And if you guys are interested in learning more about how to interact with culture and if God has a plan for that, Claire's actually going to be talking about that in an upcoming episode, so stay tuned.
Oh, wow, you really just did that?
I want to plug that for you because I know it's going to be so good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should leave it there. Thank you guys
Right.
for listening. Appreciate it.
Oh, wait.
Oh, what?
Hang on.
Oh, no.
I think
we need a breakup.
Yeah.
The breakup line, yep.
Okay, hang on.
That's so awkward. I just ended it.
This isn't easy. Wait, really? Luke.
No, I didn't end the recording. We're still live on the air, Aaliyah. But I just ended the podcast. I gave my trademark thank you for listening.
That's how I talk to Luke when I think nobody's listening.
Guys, you got that was the realest this podcast will ever get.
All right. For all you wonderfully individual people, this is my sign off for you. This isn't easy, but neither are you. Bye.
Okay, I'm scarred now. Thank you for listening.
Goodbye, everyone.
Oh no!